What's going on, everybody? I'm excited to introduce you to my brother in blue, my brother in arte, my brother in business, Mike Riddell. Mike, how you doing today, bro?
Man, I am blessed, brother. Probably the best day of my life.
Yeah, why is that? Why is that?
Dude, you know what? I woke up this morning. And when you wake up, it's a beautiful day, brother.
Oh my goodness, my man's starting early. We're just in introductions. He's already spitting fire, man. I love it. I love it, Mike. I talk a lot about you. If you guys follow me on social media, I tag this gentleman all the time. So you guys probably see it. We share that law enforcement background. We share this faith-based lifestyle. And Mike, I just want to, give people a chance to bring them into your world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, just to tell you, a little bit about myself, I think first off, Angelo, thanks for having me on and thanks for, blessing me with the opportunity to talk to your audience. I think it really takes a lot of work and energy to do what you've done and the heart that you have for what you've done for your community and what we're bringing to people is just incredible, brother. So
I
I want
appreciate
to thank you for that. I think we've clicked so much is because, a little bit about myself. We did a lot of similar things, right? I mean, we both were cops, right? Understanding the ins and the outs. We had a lot of great stories as police officers, but we've also had the times where it's like, man, is this for me, right? And
it. Yeah.
understanding that for me, keeping it really simple is so essential. I went from police officer to the CIA, and I say the CIA really quickly because I help people with mortgages, right? The credit, income, and asset warrior, right? And if it had been one of the biggest blessings I could ever ask for. And, that being said, I was a police officer for about 8 years, went into mortgage, and now I'm doing both mortgage and insurance services, help people with retirement and understanding where they're putting their money, understanding the ins and the outs, because let's be like really, really real. There's a lot of Instagram fakes out there. There's a lot of people that think there's something and realistically the messages that they're sending
Mm.
are just horrible. They're going to kill our nation. So for me, that's who I am. I'm very authentic. I like to say raw authentic. I like to say, listen, man, this is who I am. I'm a huge believer. I met God. My parents raised me as a believer. I'll let you probe at any questions you have, but I think that's enough to tell you a little bit about myself. But I really clung on to my relationship with the Lord when I was about 28 years old, when I hit rock bottom, and I found that God was my rock at the bottom. So
Oh my bro, there's so many places we can take this conversation. Like I'm like, oh, that was a good one. That's a good one. But let's stay here right now, right? You talked about hitting rock bottom. Now, I believe that when you and I met, there was that instant connection, right? Like I'm not trying to man crush, but I am right now, right? We had that instant connection. Like they're like, okay, I'm gonna introduce you to Mike. He used to be a cop too, and I'm like, all right, cool. We'll see how this goes. And like right away we clicked. Now I believe that there's a reason why people click. When you meet someone, there's something about their past. There's something that there's similar things that you have gone through, similar pains to be more specific, that you can look at someone and never say a word to them, but you be like, there's some kind of attraction, magnetism, whatever you want to call it. And I had that. And when you just said rock bottom, my definition of rock bottom, and everyone knows here, is my injury, my knee, all that, my lost my career. Now, if you're, I want to, what's your rock bottom look like? What is that for you, Mike?
man, I got the chills over here. You talking, bro?
Mm.
You talk about rock bottom. It's something you'll never forget.
Oh.
The feeling of why we do what we do. For me, what my rock bottom looked like was very similar to yours. I found myself in one night in a position where I was losing my job. I was losing my wife, my fiance at the time. I had everything, but deep down spiritually, I had nothing. And you talk about, the ins and the outs of rock bottom. Everything I did everything for was for my wife or my fiance at the time. And everything I did anything for was for my career because that was my identity, bro. And both of those in one night were taken from me. So when you talk about taking someone's identity, and you really start to internalize that, and you have to re-identify yourself as a person, I'd say that's the bottom.
Man, I can't believe this is the beginning of the podcast. I feel that like I'm getting nervous thinking about this identity and rock bottom all over again. Because like what you said, that identity, especially as cops, right? Let's dive into this a little bit.
Please.
As cops, we identify ourselves as a warrior, right? You're a badass, you're hard to kill, you're the bad motherfucker in the room, right? That's just, let's just be real. That's the identity that we are trained in, that when we put on the badge, we put on the uniform, that's what we go out to do. And when you take that from someone who is like, this is all I got, and you take it, you're lost. And for me, that was when I was 25 and I got injured. And then later on, a few years later, blah, 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 take my gun, take my badge. I was like, what the heck just happened? And you mentioned that's when you found God, because that's exactly when I found God too, was when I hit rock bottom, was when I felt like I had no other options, when the world took my identity. I had to turn to him to find my new one.
Man.
Now, was that kind of like what happened for you as well? Is it because you lost your identity, you had to go find it again?
You know, I really did, bro. And it's funny you say that, because everything in our life happens for us and not to us, right? I truly, deeply believe that. And it's just something that I've learned. I've followed, incredible leaders on the spiritual side. Pastor Rick Warren has been one of my spiritual mentors forever. And I've never even, I've gotten pictures with him, given him big bear hugs, but never really even met him, just his word and, what he's doing. But to tell you a little bit about just me and how I was raised apostolic Pentecostal. So I was raised that there was a Lord, and I was raised that there was always a God. But I can tell you a little bit more about how my walk with the Lord separated when I turned 17 years old because of my upbringing. Now, I love my parents to death, bro. I love them to death. But unfortunately, we were forced, right, to go to church. And when we went to church, it just so happened that we went to church that was a little bit more extreme in our religion than most other kids of my age. So when I was going to church at an apostolic Pentecostal church, right, people were talking in tongues, and there was just a lot of scary stuff, right? I don't know if we can cuss, but there was a lot of scary shit, right? And I started looking at this, and I said, I believe there's a God. I just don't know that this is right for me, right? So I went through the motions when I was in my teens, through the motions, and really got to a point in my life where 20 years old, actually it was 18 years old, I went on my first ride along. And I told myself, wow, that's what I want to do, right? Identified what I wanted to do. I set my goal. I said, I'm going to be a police officer, and I'm going to do this. So I went on my first ride along. I got some incredible stories about that kind of stuff, right? But it's even funnier, though, I drifted, right? I drifted because, man, I hit every single goal that I put in my mind. But I left behind the person or the thing, right? My Lord and Savior that provided everything to me. So I left him on the sidelines. And truthfully, up until about 28 years old, I lived a life of, I had purpose. I was a good person. I've always been a good person, right? But I did live a life where I was a little more reckless, right? I wasn't looking at what the decisions we're going to make. And I think if you're in your 20s, you can relate to that. A lot of people in their 20s can relate to that. All right. But there comes a time in every person's life where we have to make a decision. And, it's either we get it when we're young, we get it when we're old, or we never get it. So the question you got to ask yourself is, when are you going to get it? Right. For me, I got it when I hit rock bottom. And I got it because I know that God was the only person there for me that I could cry to, that I could love, and that I could tell everything to, and he still forgave me. That's a beautiful thing, Angelo. That was beautiful for me. And that's where, taking it back is completely, God has always guided and provided, man. It's not about the money. It's always about just who you are as a person and who you are as an individual, right? So I don't even remember what your question was, but.
Dude, I mean, you're gonna get me emotional here because hearing you say your story and like this is supposed to be about you, bro. But I like the words that are coming out of your mouth is just like it resonates with me because it was like that too. I grew up Christian, became a cop, saw what the things we've seen at a consistent basis year after year after year, and the sacrifice and the violence and this and that, and eventually I did walk away from my faith. I never like, I'm not a Christian anymore. I just stopped going to church, stopped doing any of that stuff that, what I used to do. But you know what happened? Life kicked me in the balls. I got injured, took my identity away. And I was turning to everyone like for answers. And the only one that I could find that answer was God. And that breaking point, it was such like you said, it happened for me, not to me. But for the longest time, I was like, man, that sucked. Why did you do this to me? God, you know how hard I worked. I moved from Chicago to the Bay Area and you took it away from me like that. Why would you do that? But just like what you said, life happens for you. Now, I love where we are, man. And I mean, I'm trying to like, there's so many things I'm trying to like sort out in my mind, but how did you go from becoming a cop, rekindling your faith, and then how did you go into mortgage after that?
Craigslist.
What? For real? Craigslist? You're that guy, huh? You gotta tell that story.
Hey, I got good stories for everything, bro. In the middle of all of this, okay, I used to be a personal trainer, but I never trained anybody. You're gonna love this story.
Oh my goodness.
So I used to be a personal trainer, right? So I was a professional, whatever. I got my professional certificate to be a personal trainer back when I was 16 years old. I love working out. I popped in the police academy for physical fitness, agility, got the awards for all of that,
Wow.
It's funny though, because when I was in the middle of making the decision, right, and I was in a admin leave per se, right, an admin leave where I had an intermission of 8 months where they're making a decision, right, and come to find out the decision is I could have went back as a police officer. But in the meantime, I wasn't sure. It was still at that point in my life where I was like, am I going to be able to go back, right? And in that pivotal time of my life, I did what any hustler would do. I literally said, you know what I got to do? I'm in a very rich area. I know this is a really good area where I can maybe find a couple of rich people and I can make a living this way. So instincts for myself went straight to what could I do to make a living for me? And I was in good shape. I was physical fit. Like, people talk about wanting to do training with someone that's fit, or they look like, man, this guy's in shape. He got some muscles on him, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I posted an ad on Craigslist. And it said personal trainer. And at the time I was living in Rancho Santa Margarita. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to post an ad. You need a physical fitness trainer, one-on-one trainer. Guess what happened? That phone never rang. 3.5 weeks later, I was like, man, what in the world am I going to do? Actually, I said 3.5, like I'm certain it was 3.5. It could have been 4 weeks, could have been 2.5 weeks. But the point in the matter is, nobody ever called. Dude, one day I was in the bathroom and I saw my phone ring. And I was like, who is this? Right? I was walking out of the bathroom and I go, hello? And it was somebody else on the other end of the line. I'm going to keep that confidential for now. But it was, man, I'm fat. I'm out of shape. I used to be an athlete. And I need to get back in shape. Come to find out, I go, all right, I'm your guy. Right? He's like, how much does it cost? Keep it real simple, right? I was like $60 an hour, bro. But for you, I'm going to throw you a deal. Let's do $50 an hour. Because at the time, that's where my identity was. That's what I was worth. I was worth $40 to $50 an hour as a police officer. hey man, if I can close this at 40, 50 bucks, he goes, $50, that's it? Personal training, 101? I was like, shit, I should have said more.
Oh, I love this. This is like a movie, bro. Go ahead. Keep going. I love this. Go ahead.
So what did I do? Dude, I go, yeah, that's it. That's it. All right, man. I was like, dang it. I already undershot myself. But the next one, I already know. Maybe I get more, right? So what did I do? He goes, hey, I'm show up tomorrow. I go, okay, show up at 6 a.m. He ends up coming back. He shows up. He's like, hey, he calls me 10 minutes later. He goes, hey, I'm going to bring a buddy with me. And I go, okay. He goes, how much more? I'm like, oh, usually it's like $20 more to bring a buddy. But, $10, let's make it $60. He goes, that's it? I was like, dang it.
Dude, this keeps getting better and better. It's like the buildup of a joke, bro. But this is hilarious. Go ahead. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so that's it, dude. That's really what it boiled down to is I ended up meeting he ended up showing up the next couple days. He was like throwing money at me, bro. He's like, hey, I'm going to pay you more. I'm going to pay you more to train me less. And this guy was like, I'm putting him in shape, right? Like he showed up for 2 weeks and I worked the crap out of this guy. Oh, and you know what's funny? He ended up saying, like I said, he's like, man, like you were intense, bro. But it was funny because at the time, the guy lost a lot of weight doing this, doing that, and it worked out, So that's how I got out of it. And my daughter just walked in here thanks to COVID. You got to love this, right?
This is reality. So, it's really funny, man. I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you were in the fitness industry as well.
For a very short stint until I found out what that guy did, right? And I started showing up. Funny story. So he was in mortgage banking. And that's kind of where I started showing up. I was like, hey, what do you do? So that's kind of where I ended up turning that conversation, that relationship into a career, right? And seeing what he does, hey, I want to learn it. So I just started showing up. I was on admin leave. So I was like, okay, you know what? I don't got nothing better to do Monday through Friday. I'm going to show up and learn this trade. I'm going to learn how to be a mortgage banker because all I saw was like, dude, this guy was making way more money than he knew what to do with. Yeah. So I was like, well, shoot, if he can do it, I can do it. Learn mortgage banking, learn the ins and the outs of it, help build some mortgage companies, right? And yeah, that's the long story short on that one, brother.
So wait. Correct me. That's your first one and only client was that guy.
I didn't get one more call. From that ad, bro. I got one call. You want to talk about faith? You want to talk about people being put in your life by other sources?
Your one and only client led you to what you're doing now.
100%.
A piece of what you're doing now.
Yep.
Wow, dude, there's things that, how many times do we have to say something is a coincidence, quote unquote, right, before we realize there's something bigger, there's someone better, someone bigger in play? Yep. I say it all the time, like, wait, that can't be a coincidence. To be honest, I'm not trying to be like foo-foo or anything like that, but I don't believe in coincidence anymore. Like there's a reason why this happened at this time and at this place at this specific moment. There's a reason. And that, man, your one and only client led you to mortgage. So, okay. So now you're in the mortgage business. You're killing it. Obviously. I mean, you are killing it. If you guys don't follow Mike on social media, you'll see this man is killing it. He's living a very great and blessed life. Now, how does that, explain to me how you got into insurance from there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I started seeing, obviously as we commit our life to a better cause, a better purpose, two things happened. So as a cop, I think you could probably share the same emotions. I had a lot of fear about going on social media. And my fear came from a deeper part of my training as a police officer. Well, if I go on social media, people will find me and learn about my family and do all this stuff. But I prayed on it. And I really tried to understand, like, okay, should I go on social media? Should I not? Right. So it's really funny when you go look back at like the progression. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but the progression of your social media and how it goes. And there's a lot of work that goes into social media. Like I am literally like honored to be on your podcast because I know how much work is put in to get a following like you have.
I appreciate
right? And then you trusted me to get in front of your audience to talk to them. But what ended up happening is I went from into mortgage, and then I said, well, hey, I have to market myself, and I had to learn how to market myself. So what did I do is I went through some social media marketing classes, and my first class was in social media marketing, and I committed, and here's what I said. I said to myself one thing. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it with all of my heart. And if I have one reason for social media, I'm happy, right? In Hollywood, this is something I've learned being in business and different things is if you are going to do something, you got to do it with the storyline. And if you're going to do your life, you got to do it with the storyline, right? You've already heard my storyline is to lead people to the Lord, lead people to a better life. I don't care if it's my religion or not. I want people to know that there's something bigger out there, right? It's not them, right? I obviously would be a bias, but hey, I love my religion, of course. But I love people, like I've met some of the best people that are Mormon. I've met some of the most incredible people in all kinds of religions, right? So understanding that, my storyline and why I got on social media is to lead people, the masses, to the Lord. And if I can do that, and let's just keep it more politically correct, if I can do that, I will always give credit to who it's due to, right? Which is why if you go back to my social media and you do follow me, you look at what I'm doing, I'm probably that guy that goes, man, this guy, I try not to be a Bible pusher. Right? I'm not the guy that says that, but I'm always in my narratives is giving glory where it's done, right? You'll see a lot of pictures where I got my finger up. And guess what I'm putting my finger up to, right? The man who provided it all to me. The Lord who provided it, right? It's not about me. It's about the Lord who provided us this opportunity to lead as many people to the light, right? And we're the light in the darkness. So to answer your question, getting into mortgage, I saw a lot of crooked people. I saw a lot of people living a crappy life, just like in police work.
Yep.
So it wasn't just in police work that you have these bad apples that are doing things that are just nasty, right? Same thing in mortgage, right? Real estate. These guys are making 2, 3, 4 times the money and just not good people, right? And I don't want to say they're not good people. They were just a bad company. So long story short there, I went to a bunch of networking events, and I was always thriving to be a part of something like Arate. People who were committed to being the best version of themselves in all areas of life, right? So for me, I got to see Ed Milet. I got to watch Ed Milet talk at one of the conferences in July, way back in July, about 2 years ago. So you can go back and you can scroll. It's been about 2 years ago in July that Ed Milet was speaking at a real estate and mortgage event. And at that day, we had 5,000 people, 5,000 real estate agents that were making all kinds of money. You guys haven't heard Ed Milet's talk about, you're great compared to what, right? You're, this compared to what, right? All these people in the room compared to what? You're making $100,000, you're making $1 million. In all due respect, they can't pay for Ed Milet's property taxes on one of his houses, right? That got me. And then he closed it with, you need a higher power. If you haven't heard that speech, man, he got me at that day. That day I sent him a text message. I sent him, because I didn't know him. I didn't know Ed. I can go back to my social media. Social media is a very powerful tool. So powerful that we don't even understand how powerful it is. I sent him a message saying, God's using you for incredible things, Ed. Thank you so much. That message you delivered today. And he literally, genuine message back to me. Like, thank you so much. We just left it at that. From that day forward, and I haven't really exposed this, but from that day forward, I knew that I would work with that man. And you talk about knowing, right? But talking about it, It wasn't like I was out in the middle of, this place saying, hey, I'm going to work with Ed Milet. I was trying to get selfies with this guy for 2 years long. And not that I'm chasing him or some weird freak, but dude, I loved the message he sent and what he was doing for the Lord. Go figure. He's mentored by John Maxwell, close family friends with Pastor Rick Warren. You want to talk about a circle, right? I'll let you keep answering your questions, but man, this is how I got to where I'm at today.
I love that, dude. Oh man. I totally had a great question, like kind of lined up in my mind, like, oh, that was a good one. Now I'm like, come on, Mike, you making it hard. Usually, like this flows so well, and there's so many nuggets that you dropped in there. I mean, especially let's go back to social media. There's so many good entrepreneurs out there. Like they're solid. These guys have done some big things, made a lot of money. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, because a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, whether they're seasoned or they're starting out. The difficult part in this whole personal development journey is in the beginning where you have, oh, I like this from that guy. I like this from that guy. I like this. I like this. I like this. And now you're like trying to listen to everybody, listen to all their advice. And at the end of the day, you still don't know who you are. What I admire about you is you locked in on who you wanted to be. You said it earlier. You admired Rick Warren, and then you locked in on Ed Milet, because I started realizing and I started building traction in my own personal growth and even in my business. Right when I started locking in who I wanted to be, we have a very I should say, we have a very similar story on how we found our mentors and what. Like mine was. I was working out. I was injured, right? So I couldn't do regular push-ups. And I was like, man, I got to do everything modified. You know what? And I was just in a frustrated, dark place in my life that I was like, I'm tired of listening to music. I'm going to try listening to a podcast. And that very first podcast I ever listened to was episode 107, Win the Day by Andy Frisella, MF CEO Project. And I was like, this guy is fire. I love Andy. This dude, like, he's cussing. He's telling you straight up. I'm like, this podcast stuff is cool. So I keep listening to him, and I'm like, man, I love this. I love this. And then that's when I started my supplement company. Like everyone knows, I just straight up copied First World. I was like, oh, this is what I want to be like, right? And so then I keep listening to Andy. He brings on Ed, and now I'm like, I'm aware Ed's on my radar now. And I'm like, man, Andy speaks to that anger in me, that warrior spirit in me that just like, oh. And then Ed spoke to my spiritual, that gentleness, that, you know what I mean? That like that higher power calling. And it was a perfect blend of the both. And I'm like, I remember I had telling my wife, I was telling Carlene, I was like, babe, I don't know what I got to do, but I wish Andy Frisella and Ed Milet just made a group. Dude, for real. I was like, I wish they just get together and create something. I don't know what, like, I wish, like, cause I was in different masterminds learning from different people. I'm like, I wish these guys could just come together and just do something. Right. And then maybe a year or two later, Arate comes out. I was like, oh hell, like, oh my goodness, like application, like, I don't care how much it costs, put me in there. Because I know that was a sign from the big man. Like I literally like prayed like these. After I found Ed and Andy, everybody else I shut out. I was listening to all these other. They were good dudes, but I'm like, we had focus. We need that focus, right? Just like in law enforcement, before you go hit a house, you got to have focus. You got to know, like, you can't be thinking, oh, did I train, or is my gear ready? Am I ready? Is my partner ready? Are you squared away? Like, no, you got focus. Did you put in the work? Yes? Okay, good. Stop thinking about it. Just be in the moment, focus. You're going to be over here like, whoo, like getting ready. But that's what we need. That's what I needed. And that's what we want to share to people. You need to focus. There's a lot of great things. There's a lot of good things, but if you want to go to the great thing, you got to narrow down who you're learning from.
Yes.
I'm not even trying to make this about me, but you
love it.
You found Ed. I mean, can I say this? Like you were shoulder tapped to start this venture, right? Is that wrong to say?
Yeah, no, it's So the way that I came across Ed was truthfully, Chris got into the syndicate. I had no clue about Arate. Chris got into the syndicate, and Chris is my good buddy. He's been trying to recruit me on the mortgage side. He's worked for some bigger companies and put them, a couple regions on the map for them, just crushing it in the mortgage game. So I've actually looked at him. Chris, by the way, is 28 years old today, making between $1 and $3 million in mortgage alone, right? So he put in for Arte Syndicate, and he was one of 100 people that were out of 60,000 people selected, right? You got to make over $500,000 a year. You got to be able to prove it, and you got to put up $60,000 a year to be a syndicate member. So he was the second phase of the syndicate members. So he went to the syndicate event out at Ed's house in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I knew him at the point. He was trying to recruit me and the whole 9 yards. And it's funny because he's like, hey, thinking we're going to start something up with Ed. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I was like, you're crazy, bro. You're crazy. And guess how I met Chris?
How?
2 years ago, or roughly 2 years ago, Chris hit me up out of the blue on a text message. All right, this is where I was like, he goes, hey, this is Chris from New American, right? Blah, 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 right? And I see what you're doing in faith, and I love what you're doing, right? Because of your social media. I love what you're doing. Let's grab coffee. That's how I met Chris several years ago.
Wow.
We sat down and we talked shop about faith and about the next steps as being a believer to plug into the church and go to small group, those things. And then fast forward, right, to last year in July, he went to the syndicate event. He's a horrible at social media at the time. I say at the time, right? Horrible. I'm like, dude, you went to Ed's house, bro. Like, you got to market this thing, bro. You got to put it out there. And he's just super humble. He's like, yeah, dude, you're not capitalizing. Like, put it out there. And he started laughing, I went on a mission trip. So the last couple of years, I went on a couple mission trips. So Guatemala was a mission trip I went on last year. Went on a mission trip, got back, was sitting in church the day after my Guatemala mission trip, and Chris texted me. He goes, Ed wants to meet with us at his house tomorrow at 3 p.m. I'm like, babe, look at this. Look, Ed wants to meet us tomorrow. She knows how I am about, Ed would probably never know this, but right now. But literally, I looked at it, and I was like, look. So we drove down there, and 2 hours, let's say, for example, 2 hours into a meeting with Ed in his Laguna Beach house, right? $30 million house on the beach. We're sitting out on the patio, me and like 3 or 4 other guys. And it was all starting from there. He said, hey, I'm going to start something, and I need some good leaders. And I'm talking real leaders, which is why we're blessed to have you, Angelo. That's why we're blessed to be working together on this project. We're partners, bro. That's exciting.
I love that, brother. Thank you. That's such an honor. And, you were there from the very beginning of the whole Miliari group, right? So one thing I want to touch on, and I don't want to rush this because there's so many great things like we can still dive into. So you're for sure going to have to come back for a second episode. But there's something I want you to share with the audience. Like, you have this big project, this not necessarily project, I guess how you call it a project. You have a project to do, and do you mind me sharing it?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, you have this big project to do 100K in 30 days. Now, I know this is not necessarily a money play. Can you touch on that? Because I'm like, okay, my man's trying to make 100K in 30 days. Like, what's this about? You got to share, bro. I mean, what's that about?
Absolutely. So something that we're doing, obviously, is understanding. We put a competition together, and a lot of times what we'll run into in business or in this area or that area of life, when you're a competitor, you want to be able to compete, right? And so what we ended up doing is we ended up putting a competition together with our team about literally taking some steps in the right direction. And all of the head guys, which are in the Miliari group, have set a mission, right, with the Milliard Group. Nothing to do with my loans, obviously. I'm still producing on the loan side, but outside of that, completely opposite side, which is with my insurance and helping people on retirement, our goal is to make 100,000 within 30 days, right? And the reason my goal is that it's not about the money, right? I think truthfully, the money comes to those who help enough people, right? And I know that God's proven it to me. You know, when you're ready, good and faithful servant, he'll provide it. But I think the real goal behind it is to show people, right? It's COVID. Everything's going on. There's no way you can make money. There's like this and that, right? I can tell you in a brand new industry that I stepped into, right? I didn't have any experience in this industry. Within we started, our first meeting was December, I think 4th, right? Several hundred agents on our team, right? Since December 4th, right? And to show this, right? To show the progression, a lot of people are like, well, I couldn't do it. No, you could, right? So the message behind it is, first off, you know, we want to have a competition. So if there's a competition, count me in, right? I'm a competitor. That's the biggest piece of it, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, I've run everything in my life, right, from a competition standpoint. And I'm not the guy that's going to go out and just talk smack, right? I'm just not that guy. But I'll tell you what, if someone calls me out and says, hey, there's a competition, I'm going to do everything I can to try to get to the point in my life where I win, right? Or at least I'm on the scoreboards. Come on, man. Like, you have to be that kind of person in any area of life, right? Same thing with the Lord. Same thing with this or that, right? Whatever you're doing, like, why are you going to go to college football and put in all this time if you're not going to compete, right? Same thing, police academy. Why am I going to go through the police academy if I'm not going to be number one in something? So that's really it. It's a competition just to show people to break through their limiting beliefs, right? Because, yeah, people will be like, oh, yeah, well, you've already done it in the mortgage side and you're doing this and doing that. No. This is completely separate on top of, right? Completely separate. And I started this literally, I would say December. But honestly, I really didn't start doing this job as far as like understanding and actually going deeper into the weeds and understanding it till about 3 or 4 months ago. And putting our head down, working 3 to 4 months, was able to achieve the broker position in the company. And now it's a competition between brokers to help us get to the best version, right? To help us get further along. So a little competition along the way, right? Amongst our SMDs or our senior marketing directors, that's what we're doing. So I'm excited about it. I love, competition, and, to answer that for you, I hope it wasn't too long-winded.
No,
it's
it was
really
good,
just
man.
to compete.
I love that because it shows like, what you're trying to do is break mental barriers for people, right? Because when you say 100K in 30 days, you're going to have a lot of people like, dude, that's crazy. But you know what? If you're not operating in that's crazy, then I feel like you're not using it. You don't have enough faith. Like if you're just operating in everything that you can do, you don't need faith. If you want big dreams, you want big goals, you need faith because God needs to come in, right? Or the universe, whatever you believe in, needs to come in and have a hand in that. Because if it's something you can produce on your own, you don't need faith. So that I like that a lot, man. That 100K in 30 days, that's awesome. And that starts when? Today?
July 1st. Yeah, today.
Oh man. So guys, how can people follow you? How can they connect with you, follow you? What can people do?
Instagram handle is the _mortgage_ police. I think that's the easiest way to find me, or type in Michael Riddell on Instagram. I used to do a lot more on Facebook. The run over comes still on Facebook, but yeah, I think I'm the most active on Instagram. Most likely, that would be the best channel.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you, brother. One last thing before you leave. What to that one person that's listening to that's listening to this recording or watching this video right now? What's that one thing you would say to that person that is maybe they don't have that confidence, they don't have that self-belief, they don't have that identity in themselves, they don't have an identity at all, I should say. What would you say to that person right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, bro. I think when you really dig down to the deepest part of it, this is a conversation I had with a very tight loved one in my life, and letting them know, I've had this conversation often, right? Letting them know that they're enough, right? Letting them know that, you know, you don't have to beat somebody, or you don't have to be somebody else. You're okay who you are, and you're truly enough, right? And when people understand that they're truly enough, it's very difficult because everything in society teaches differently. But if you know that you're enough, right, and you don't need anything else, knowing deep down that you're enough, I think that should be enough to help you start to grow, right? Start to build up, no matter where you're at in life, right? Just knowing that you're worthy, and that you are worthy of being the best. You are worthy of getting whatever your dreams are, right? So break down those self-limiting beliefs and just know that you're enough.
Love that. I love that. Mike, thank you for being on the show, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for your friendship, your mentorship. You're just a great, great person inside and out. And I'm honored to be working alongside next to you. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Love you, brother. We'll talk
Love you
soon.
too, bro. Thank you. Thank you.
God bless you.